Hi, everyone. Welcome to Characters Gone Mad. I'm author and illustrator J.D. Holliday, and we are live at blogtalkradio.com/RR Radio, which means Red River Radio. Authors Karen Vaughn, Mary E. Martin, and Gail Hedrick are here, and we will bring their characters to life in a very different way. Okay, Mary, how about you? Why don't you tell us about Alexander?
Okay, first of all, I want to warn you that Alex is with me. He wouldn't let me come alone. And he may be editing my comments as we go along.
Okay.
Alexander is Britain's finest landscape artist, and he's known as the master of light. The trilogy is made up of 3 books: The Drawing Lesson, The Fate of Pride, and Night Crossing. What's special about Alex's paintings is that there is this fantastic, numinous light which emanates from all his work, and those who view it are convinced that they can see the beyond. For this reason, he is a very popular artist, but not to some of his fellow artists. In particular, throughout the trilogy, there's a character called Ronaldo, and Alex right now is nudging me to really give you the goods on Ronaldo, who is, in effect, Alex's nemesis. He is always there sort of jabbing him in the ribs and so forth. But what I find most interesting about the relationship is, despite the fact that Alex is often mocked by Ronaldo, there's a bond between the two of them, and that seems to have developed more and more by itself as I wrote the trilogy, particularly in Night Crossing. But The Drawing Lesson starts off with Alex painting a painting called The Hay Wagon, and he is alarmed when suddenly he starts painting these ugly, misshapen, troll-like figures along the riverbank, and he's never done this before. And he shocks himself, and he shocks, of course, his art dealer, the narrator of the story, James Helmsworth. In any event, the trolls are really that which leads him on to the next stage of his art. So that's a little bit about Alex, and everything I've said so far, he's been nodding.
He agrees with? Oh, good. Let me ask you a question. If Alexander was to marry another fictional character by another author, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Alex is rolling his eyes and nearly gasped. In the trilogy, Alex has a love interest other than his art, and her name is Daphne. My guess is that he's had enough trouble establishing a relationship with Daphne that we might, seriously harm him if we started bringing in other characters from unknown novels. He's really going quite pale. So my answer to your question, J.D., is really let's let him see what he can establish with Daphne. She thinks he is too wedded to his art and that he really lives his life with his head in the clouds, and she is wanting a real life here and now relationship. So they have their differences to adjust to, but as I was writing Night Crossing, I was seriously debating how I was going to have their relationship end or finish off in the book. Would it be something that was going to solidly continue on, or would one of them break it off? And I did make the decision, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And Alex doesn't want me to say either.
Okay. All right.
It is resolved, at least for now. And he's smiling.
Oh, good. I'm glad he approves of your answer there. Let's go on to question 2 for you. If Alexander was an inventor as well as an artist, what would he invent?
Well, what
Go ahead, ask him.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and ask him.
Yeah, he's tapping his fingers and telling me to go ahead. So what he would invent is a way to time travel in the real world. And I say that, or he says that, because he is already time traveling in cyberspace on my blog. And there are a number of stories he's written on my blog in which he has traveled back in time. To take just one example, he's gone back to Venice several centuries ago and met with William Blake, the poet. Also, he has more recently traveled back into the 1950s in the States in order to meet J.D. Salinger and Holden Caulfield. He finds these trips really extraordinary, which they are. He even met with Anton Chekhov in Russia. So traveling in cyberspace, he seems to have gotten a handle on it, and he would invent some sort of a time machine so it would work in this world, our physical world. Is that right, Alex? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alex agrees with that? Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay.
Yes.
Question 3 for you and Alexander. This is a good one, and I can't wait for the answer, okay? It's making the rounds. Alexander's nemesis, Ronaldo, is forging paintings of the world's greatest masters. But Alexander experiences a vision that tells him otherwise. Can he stop the rumors and help Ronaldo?
What a great question. It really appeals to Alexander and his nature. And I think I said earlier that in his relationship with Ronaldo, that there's this strange bond. And actually, throughout the trilogy, there are several occasions on which Alex has actually rescued his friend from some sort of a fix he's gotten into. Ronaldo is, I should mention, quite a different artist from Alexander. Alexander paints landscapes, so you look at them and you see what he's painted. Ronaldo is quite different. He's what is called a conceptual artist and maybe even a performance artist. And in so doing, he frequently creates what most normal people would call crazy stunts. And Alex is likely to, first of all, view whatever Ronaldo has done as a conceptual art project or stunt. And given Alex's nature, he would then do his utmost to point out to people that whatever Ronaldo has done, if he has done forgeries of great paintings, Alex will argue with everybody that what Ronaldo was really trying to say in his art project is that this gives art out to the masses, and so why shouldn't he provide the rest of the world with innumerable copies of great art? And that the intent is not to forge, the intent is to entertain. Probably what he would.
Go ahead.
And he's saying to me that that's a pretty good answer.
It is. It's a very good answer, and I bet you that would help too.
Well, as long as he agrees, it's fine.
Oh, thanks. Let's go back to Mary. This is another interesting question because I just know it's going to be a good answer. The trolls that once appeared in his paintings have disappeared from the paintings, and Star Wars characters have replaced them, doing battle with the Sith in all of his paintings. Star Wars fans love it, but what would Alex do? Try to go with this and enjoy his new adoring fans, or try to remove the characters from the paintings?
Alex is freaking out. In fact, he may be going to leave.
Sorry, Alex.
No. It's just he can get emotional over his artwork. Actually, he would be very upset if they turned into Star Wars characters or anything other than his trolls. Because that's interesting, because when the trolls first appeared, he was absolutely shocked and really, really upset. And because of that, in fact, that in itself sent him on a journey to Venice in order to give himself some time to think. And that's the rest of the drawing lesson. But he would be upset if they disappeared and something else took their place that he had not created. He would regard it as serious interference with his art. And I think he always, much as he was concerned about the appearance of the trolls in his paintings, I think he always saw them really as a sign to him that there was a big change coming in his artwork. In fact, that's what happens over this book and the next two. So if some other thing appeared in place of the trolls, he would make every effort he could to remove them.
So he doesn't. How about Darth Vader? Wouldn't he be impressed if Darth Vader showed up? Karen's asking that question in the chat room.
He might be scared.
He might be scared. Yeah, I would be frightened too. I go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't quite know what his answer to that would be, but as I said before, he is, very proprietary about his art. He doesn't like things happening in it unless it happens through him.
I get that. Yes, as an artist, I can understand. You tell him that I'm with him on that.
Well, I mean, we're all writers of books here, and what if somebody came in and said, okay, well, this almost sounds like an editor. Take that chapter out and put this one in.
Yes, that's true.
Really different. But I think just about every artist would feel that way.
Sure. Okay, Alexander, he's still hanging in there, right? He hasn't left.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Alexander stumbles into a movie and becomes one of the characters in it. What movie would it be, and or what character would he be?
Oh, my goodness. I was hoping you'd ask me about the reality TV show. Because,
well, you can answer that one instead.
Alex,
you can go ahead and answer that if you like.
Alex doesn't go to the cinema too often. And really, I've been encouraging him to do so, but he's very tied to his art. However, he does have a small television in his studio, and sometimes he turns it on. And I think he would be very entertained these days with the Donald Trump show. And whether it be the one in which he fires everybody or whether it's the one in which he's running for president. I think he would have a lot of commentary about, whether the man is suitable for the job and whether or not whether or not this is actually for real. So he would be watching the Donald Trump show.
Okay. Alexander is asked to paint a portrait of Cruella de Vil. Could he influence her personality with the time he spends with her?
I think he would influence almost anybody, even her. His manner is very open and seems to invite people confiding in him. And so I think she would be softened, shall we say, or hopefully softened by his approach. Certainly the whole business of doing a portrait of somebody is quite an interesting exercise. The person who is being painted obviously wants to make a a good impression upon the person who is painting. And so I think Cruella would go out of her way to soften her nature, unless she's on a particularly prideful sort of day in which she wants, she wants to look as if she's just thrown down the gauntlet and said, "Don't you dare cross that line." So it would, to a certain extent, depend on her mood. But if anybody could soften the edges, it would be Alexander.
Well, I was thinking, he might be able to save some puppies. I mean, that was what I had in mind, and I thought because he has the ability to make people see better. I guess that's you know what I'm talking about. I can't remember exactly, but he might be able to persuade her just by his presence to be less of a cruel person. That's what I thought.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. I mean, he is a very empathetic type of person, and people tend to gravitate to him. So,
right.
It
would work out. It would, right.
He'd be a tough customer, but
right.
I think he might pull through.
I think so too. Would you be a help to Alexander in any way if you were a character alongside him in your next book?
Well, I think some days I think Alex can't get along without me, and I know he thinks he can get along by himself quite well. But if I were in his next book, and I very likely will be since I've got to write it, yes, I would help him out in the following sense. Number one, he knows I don't paint, and any effort I might make would be disastrous. However, he does know I like to talk about stuff like art and life and just sort of all that type of thing. And so I can see that Alex and I would have long conversations. He might want to go in one direction in the plot, and I might be able to dissuade him that perhaps that's just a dead end down that alleyway. So I would like to think I have some influence left over him and could help him in the book.
But he's right there, so you have to be careful with the
exactly.
answer.
Actually, I did send him out to get coffee.
Oh, that's a good idea. Very good idea.
Well, it's funny about writers. We can do what we want with our characters.
That's right.
Or so we think.
Yeah, so we think. It's plenty of times they walk right over you. They just take over.
Exactly.
If Alexander found a character who he thinks is his muse on Sesame Street, what character would it be?
Alex has a habit of choosing people who are the polar opposites of himself, which is an interesting sort of technique to use throughout the trilogy. I would think that he would probably choose the Grouch. And,
really?
Yeah, because the Grouch is quite different. Alexander is, quite by nature reserved, pretty placid, hard to ruffle. And if there's a lot of emotional stuff going on within him, it usually stays within him. But I think the Grouch is somebody who would be as opposite to Alex as you could possibly imagine, because he's a very sort of empathetic, sort of forgiving type of individual, and the Grouch is always grouching. So I think that might be the pairing up.
Well, that's really funny, because I thought he was the less likely you would pick.
Well, you never know. I mean, if you see that a person is attracted to people who are entirely different, I always think there's got to be a reason. Like, there's got to be something in that other person that, the individual needs. And they find it in their opposite. Of course, the old saying, of course, opposites attracting.
Sure. But you would know best since you are his creator. So
Well,
I vouch for you on that one.
Say that quietly, though, will you?
Oh, okay, I will. Yeah. Oh, he's back in the room. Oh, I forgot. The last question for everybody. Mary, your last question.
Yes.
Is in his travels, Alexander meets many interesting people. Who is the most horrible person he has ever met?
Aha. He's met a lot of really interesting ones, but the one I find most horrible and probably frightening is right in the earlier, sort of the mid part of the drawing lesson. And there's this man, his name is John, and he is met in the first instance by another character named Celia, and she meets him on a road in the country headed towards an inn where she is going to spend some time. And what's odd about this man is I describe him, at least for reference, talking about him, as the old man with the horse. He persistently blocks her way on the country road with his horse and cart filled with hay and makes it extremely difficult for her to get to the inn. And there's no reason given for it, but that is what he does. And I think the mystery of his intentions is what I found particularly scary. And I think it wasn't until even after publication that I really figured out just what he was doing there. He's really almost representing something in human nature that I would best call mindless revenge, because there's no obvious purpose in his blocking her way. He's just that kind of, what I find quite a scary character. And mysterious.
All righty. Mary, you're next.
Yeah, I was just going to say, J.D., that those are great questions, really provocative for the next work. But you can find out what I've written so far at MaryEMartinTrilogies.com.